Hi, good morning. Finally
Mo-
get to doc. Yes, we can see you now nicely.
Okay, I think we are live. Uh, so let's start the session. Hello, everyone. Let me just open the link and see whether it's really working or not. Let's start. Hello, everyone. Let me just open the link and see whether it's really working or not. Yep, it seems to be working fine now. So I think we can go ahead. So, hello everyone. Thanks for joining the session. So, uh, how we are going to do this is we have started this Hangout session. Me, Dr. Suresh Mohan, and Anis Abdul are in the Hangout session. But you all can see the YouTube video through the YouTube link, and then there is a live chat in the YouTube link. So you can use the live chat to submit your questions if you have any, and whenever we have time in between in the presentation and during the processing session, we will take up those questions, and Anis will try to answer those questions as well. So, first of all, we will start the session with Dr. Suresh Mohan. Doctor, do you want to say something?
Oh, this is amazing because I can't believe that a group which we started just for a few friends like me, Kirti, Subhankar, about 10 of us, we just 10 of us, we started for sharing our pictures. And then it turned out that um, um, that we should start uh, at that time when I started, hardly anybody was doing astrophotography, and I started this as a kind of a sharing and teaching and learning and teaching group, and now it's become a group of 4,000 plus people, and we have international famous great photographers, and now we have Anis Abdul come here, and so kind of him to actually explain the workflow of the image process. That's something now that I've completely forgotten, and my brain has gone rusted. I jumped into it when he said he's going to uh, do a video kind of explanation for us. This is a great opportunity for all of us. I think we should grab it and learn. Thanks, Anis.
Yep. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yes. Hi, folks. As you can tell, I'm Anis from originally from Madurai, and I started imaging about 4.5 years ago. And from that point onwards, mostly it's been learning from various sources, either via cloudy nights primarily, and then I've had some folks here locally who have come over and have also taught me techniques and software processing as well as imaging itself. So one of the things that we want to do is that everybody has a slice or a view of this big component called astrophotography. And one thing we can do is we can share our knowledge, and everyone is going to be able to basically improve each other. So every time we've been posting images, and then we talk about processing at different levels, but it is really not clear. I don't think it's very clear to everyone in terms of if we can make them improve by understanding just looking at the image, or just putting a little blurb here or there. So one of the things we want to do, at least I want to do, was to see if I can provide a baseline of how a normal image processing happens via PixInsight. And people who have been using other software tools like Photoshop or Lightroom or Astro Art and stuff like that, they can basically see and compare, and probably also provide additional tips of how we can improve these things. So that's really, and one of the things is that given the fact that we have people at different levels of understanding, I thought today at least we are figuring out how to do this, how to go about doing this thing. So what I was thinking is that I'll just give a very high level basic introduction to PixInsight, right? And we will discuss some of them. I'm pretty sure people have questions. Why PixInsight? What does it really do? That kind of stuff. And then we can go and do a actual image processing via PixInsight. And while doing that, we'll keep monitoring the chat, and we'll try to explain as much as we can. One thing to note is that we will not be able to go really deep in each of the subsystems of PixInsight, mainly because so each of these pixels, areas are pretty big, and usually it will take its own session completely. So rather, we'll give a high-level overview kind of stuff, and then depending on where we want to focus, we can create more sessions in future and go from there. So is it okay for me to go ahead and start, Doctor or Kirti? I can't hear you, but you guys are unmuted. Okay, all right. So the first thing that I wanted to start with is today we are only focusing specifically on deep space image object processing with PixInsight. Okay, we are not going to be looking at planetary imaging. That's a whole different beast, and that will probably require its own sessions and all that stuff. But here we are purely looking at deep space images. And so the question is, before we go into processing, we need to basically set ourselves up for success, right? So as you can tell, there are certain things we can control, certain things we cannot control. For example, we cannot control the weather or whether how bad our light pollution is, what viewing we have, our hardware that we are using, camera, all those kind of stuff. But you can still do certain things before you get to a point of processing, because image acquisition is half the battle, and processing is the other half of the battle. So you really want to get yourself to a point where you have the best chance of success, to succeed. So first question is, when you are doing image acquisition, stuff that you cannot control, we can't do anything about it. You are dealing with light pollution. Yes, if you have access to dark skies, even better. But few things you want to always do it is, whether you're using a DSLR, a cooled CCD, or a cooled CMOS camera, you must always consider taking flats. Flats are basically your absolute first line of defense against vignetting, FPN, the fixed pattern noise, dust modes. These absolutely need to be get out of the way as cleanly as you can, because in the case of processing, you are trying to get to a very, very faint signal, and anything else in the in your frame is going to prevent it from reaching that point. So this one you can control. You must do it. How do you do it? Right, in DSLR, you simply point to a flat white screen or something, or a uniform source of light, and you basically, without changing anything else, whether how it is connected to the camera, in which angle it is connected, none of those things should change. But you want to shoot it maybe like in the aperture priority mode, to where this histogram is centered, basically. So you're trying to get to a point where the data is in linear range. It doesn't matter what the color is, because for flat subtraction, it's only the intensity that matters. Should not change the focus, nothing. You should not touch anything else. In the case of color, cool CCD, you will want to expose till your histogram is somewhere around the center of your range. For a 16-bit camera, that will be about 30,000 ADUs, because its range is 65,000 ADU, right? 2 power 16. Right, so always consider taking flats. Take at the minimum 20 flats, 20 flat frames. If you are using mono with filters, you need to take one for each. Even if you are shooting narrowband, you should still consider taking it, because in narrowband, a lot of times you can escape without taking flats, but fixed pattern noise cannot be removed without it, so you want to take it. Second is dithering. Dithering is slight motion of the scope between every session, right? Every imaging, light frame, basically. What that allows you to do is that the noise, right, the hot pixels are a property of your camera, right? But they are, and that is going to stay relatively, it's going to be fixed to basically the camera's position. But the actual object that you're imaging will slightly move because of the dithering operation. What you can now do is use this to your advantage. So when you actually do the stacking, you can use a rejection algorithm like Winsor's sigma algorithm or kappa sigma algorithm to get rid of basically the hot pixel, this noise, the satellite trails, everything. Because if you think about it, you are basically saying that I am gonna align everything to the deep space object. That means if the deep space object is aligned and the stars are aligned, anything else that is not aligned must be noise that I can get rid of. So basically that's what it does. So we will, we are not going to go into stacking today, but you want to deter your data, absolutely. Especially for DSLR, you need to do it because you are going to see those horrible slanted red and blue noise that you cannot get rid of, and it's thermal noise, and there's no way around it. So deter every frame if you can, right? So it looks like there's a question, but ideally, if a focus is unless they are parfocal, yes. So see, it does again in your case. Remember that you're looking for dust mode, so everything else is going to be out of focus. And if you're going to use red channel, shoot with red channel. Take the flash with red channel. You will not be touching the focus. You shouldn't be touching the focus at all. Whatever with the red, take it. Normally, what I do is I usually take flats after every session. But if you can take it before the session, it's totally fine. Some cases, if you're never going to, if you're going to keep the system untouched for few days, you could probably get by with just one set of flats. Completely up to you on how your system is, but you do want to take flats. Do not skip it. That's the thing. You do not want to skip it. Don't try to bring it in and then move the camera. None of those is going to work. You need to take it. And especially given that it's so hard for us to already image, why waste our more energy on that? Let's see.
Or do you use some other light source or some flash?
So few things you can do. Absolute simple you can do is take a white T-shirt, stretch it on your OTS dew shield, stretch it basically, and start shooting. For DSLR, it's straightforward. Just put it on, point to the sky, and just shoot away with your in the A mode. In the case of CCD and CMOS, you have to figure out what exposure gives you the the histogram to the center, basically the linear range. And if the light is fading in the evening time, you'll have to take it pretty quickly. Otherwise, take an iPad and put it in front of that stretched T-shirt, and you can shoot it also. All those will work. So in certain conditions, like if you have high frequency screens, like LCD screen, sometimes if you have those LCD screens and if it is too bright, what will happen is that your exposure speed will be pretty close to the refresh speed, and then you will have issues with flats, but you can always reduce it by adding more layers of T-shirt. So how do you take the flats, right? So take the flat, as I said, you want to shoot whatever be your camera, right? In the case of, as I said, DSLR, you have to put it in the aperture priority mode, and if you shoot, it is going to give you center histogram. Basically, it's going to expose it to the center. That's it. So DSLR is very simple. Aim, do not touch anything. Do not change the focus. Put a T-shirt, on a rubber band. Put it in front of the sky, into your what do you call that? Lens. Point to the sky. A mode. Shoot. 20 of them. Done. Right. In the case of CCD is where you have to think a little bit more. You might want to have a flat, iPad or some kind of flat box. I made my own little flat box. Simply just take a little box with LED lights and a diffuser in front, and I just mount it on my telescope. I can post some images about how to build a flat box, but that's pretty simple actually. Does it make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, somebody replied that he can't hear me, so I just typed the question there. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the LED lights is very simple to do it, and we can definitely share. And there are lots of options available. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, we will definitely do that. Dithering,
absolutely do it. Do not skip it, right? If you don't know what dither is, if you're auto guiding, PhD will allow you to dither it. Most of the image processing tools will allow you to dither it. Backward EOS, if that's what you're using to cover, it will dither it, but you should dither it. That's as simple as that. You cannot skip it, right? Once you dither it, you already are having a pretty good, flats and dither will help a lot to get your frame to a point where you can start working on it. But if you start with a really bad condition, it's really hard to squeeze anything out of it. So dark and bias. So here's the question, right? Dark and bias. Bias is very important. You need to shoot bias. Bias is basically trying to tell if there is no light in the system, what is the camera electronics' contribution to signal in the system. So if you completely put in a dark box with no light and you just execute the camera electronics, there is inherent noise in all the electronics there. And what is that noise? Which is typically a fixed pattern noise. And that's what the bias is trying to capture. So what you want to do is you basically want to shoot like 100 frames with the lowest time that you can get, which is the highest shutter speed you can have in your DSLR. Or in the case of CCD, whatever is your lowest possible value. Most of them can go all the way to 0.001 second if it is a electronic shutter. If it is a physical shutter, then you have less. But you want to take the bias, right? Bias is very useful. Darks, on the other hand, can hurt you or help you depending on how you are doing it. Dark is basically talking about the dark current, which is typically related to the temperature, thermal sources in your circuitry that is contributing to basically signal. It looks like signal to you, but in reality, it is originating from the camera. And it is typically linear in the case of CCDs. That's why you can predict, like let's say I have taken a dark signal, 30-minute dark signal, and if I'm using it to calibrate a 5-minute frame, I can scale it down. The software can scale it down. But if you are shooting dark current at an absolutely different temperature, right? Let's say you're shooting at 20 degrees, and in the morning time you're taking dark current at 40 degrees. Well, it's completely going to be off. And you do not want to use it. So in the case of DSLR, anything non-cool, do not use darks. In the case of CMOS, in the case of CCD, you can use darks, but the new CMOS cameras have such low dark current that you probably can skip without it, right? CCDs like Kodak or TrueSense 8300 chips or 16200 chips, you should take darks. There's no reason not to, right? So take bias, take dark if and only if you are having a cool camera. Otherwise, depend just on bias, dithering, and flats to get to your next step, which is what we are gonna do. So once you have this, clean calibrated image, then you can stack them, and now you are gonna be in business to get to the next step, which is what we're going to discuss today, right? Processing. Any questions? Anything you want to generally discuss? Anything? Okay. All right. So let's go to PixInsight, right? So we keep hearing PixInsight. Like, what is it really, and why do you want to use it? Well, so there's a lot of image processing applications, right? You have Photoshop, you have Lightroom, you have Astro, you have tons of these applications. But why is PixInsight so important, and why do you want to use it, right? And one of the things I've noticed is that people don't think that you're ready to pay a lot of money for the telescope and for this mount and all that, but we really shortchange the software. PixInsight is specifically designed for astrophotography. It's from the ground up. It's nothing else. There's no other objective for the thing. Everything is targeted towards astrophotography. And it does provide a toolkit that is pretty much unparalleled with its abilities compared to other applications. So what it does is that you do want to use PixInsight as well as you can, plus other applications, right? I typically use it for calibration, stacking, primary processing, and then I finish it in Photoshop. Yes, Harsha is telling, yes, we should take bias in uncooled DSLR as well, yes. Because, bias should still be taken at the same temperature, but it is still trying to, since you're going at the absolute lowest speed, absolute lowest shutter speed, the temperature isn't an issue there. Rather, you're looking for fixed pattern noise. So yes, you should take bias as well for uncooled DSLR also. Yeah. Okay, so coming back to PixInsight. So PixInsight basically is one of the tool in your, but it's a very powerful tool in your toolkit. That's one thing, right? It does have very high learning curve because the UI is very weird. The way they have implemented the UI is quite weird initially. So it does throw people off. And they have almost nothing in terms of documentation other than tons and tons of forums and presentations and workshops. Very recently, one book came, and that book is not even enough to cover it. I mean, there was one person, I guess Keller or somebody, I think, Warren Keller, I believe. He came with a book now, but it changes so much that you really have to keep using it to get up to speed on that one. There's no way around it. And we need to just do it. That's no way around it, right? So, for example, some of the things it provides are dynamic background extraction. What this does is, in a very dark sky, right, you don't have to deal with background gradients and stuff. But we are all shooting in badly light polluted locations. So DBE is a very strong tool there. Color calibration, same thing. We are dealing with so much noise, light pollution that you need to provide, perform color calibration. It provides, color calibration tools, including photometric color calibration, where depending on the object you're imaging, it actually can tell what the color should be. The temperature of the stars using data collected by other telescopes. So photometric color calibration they've added. Image inspection is very good. Basically, they provide real fast ways to. Let's say you are having 200 or 300 images frames. How do you know which are good, which are not good, right? So you want to be able to blink through them. So it provides blinking mechanism. It provides subframe selector scripts where you can calculate the stars shapes, the FWHM values, lots of stuff you can do. In fact, there are a lot of scripts available that can grade your frames and throw away the bad frames, stuff like that. Excuse me. Yes, yeah, you cannot share PixInsight. No, they won't. Unfortunately, there's no way around it, and and it is an expensive program. Yeah, yeah, but yeah. Okay, and then deconvolution is again very useful, very strong, helps a lot in recovering some of the data that got, I guess, convolved. Basically, it's your signal that is basically it's a little spread out, right? You are trying to recover the signal back. So deconvolution is helpful. Mass generation tools. This provides some of the best mass generation tools I've seen. Star mass generations, range mass generations, all sorts of stuff you can do. Pixel math. That's again extremely powerful. You can, do lots of activity, a lot of special, I guess, operations just using pixel math. Mixing, deleting, grading, all sorts of mixes you can do in pixel math. Linear fitting. Also, they have a lot of, and I'll show some of those tools there. So a lot of these tools are just simply not there. Some of them are mimicked, I guess, using plugins, this and that, but purely in this mode, they're just not there. So the way I would want to do it is, you want to use some of these best tools of this product, and then use something else of another product like Image Denoise or Noise Ninja. Also you want to mix and match. Basically, your data tells how you want to process it, but this is an essential one to have it. It is a platform agnostic. They support Linux, I guess, Ubuntu, I believe FreeBSD. They support OS X. I know Windows, of course, they do. They are fully multi, cores. They support all that. They don't support GPU though. I mean, I don't believe they've added support for using GPUs to speed things up. They said that that's not their priority. I don't know why. They just don't have time for that, I guess. And the more important thing is it's extensible. They have, defined their APIs for other people to develop either newer plugins, as well as they support full JavaScript runtime in there. So you can write scripts, and a lot of people do write scripts. I know a bunch of them provide, scripts for special conditions, like things like star matching, things like mask, what do you call that, mosaic generation, stuff like that. They've done a bunch of those things. So it's very useful to extend it. Any questions? I guess nothing new. Okay. So the way we want to do is that one of the unique things that I guess PixInsight does is that it supports processing in linear data state. So normally, if you'll notice, when you stack on Deep Sky Stacker, you'll notice that it looks black basically, right? The data looks black until you go and stretch it using your levels or whatnot. So in that state, PixInsight performs a lot of operations in that state. So it's quite, some of these tools work very well when the data has not yet been manipulated right after stacking. Whether it is extracting the background, whether it is color calibration, deconvolution, some of the noise reductions, all those things it provides in linear state. And then they also provide different ways to stretch the data as well, a bunch of them. So you usually want to do all these things in linear state. Once you push it out of linear state, at that point, you have a choice. You can export the data as a TIFF format into Photoshop, and you can continue processing there, and some people do. Or you can do processing right here using HDR multi-transform. A lot of times you'll notice that, oh, my core is very bright, like, Ryan Nebula core, or, some of the Galaxy cores are very bright. Well, you'll use HDR multi-transform for that. Local histogram application, so local histogram equalization to basically brighten up some of these fine structures, morphological transformation to reduce your stars, curves transformation, all sorts of stuff is available. That's just very small piece. Okay, so Anis, can you explain more on linear and non-linear state? Okay, so I'll show it right in the actual application itself. But when you're shooting your data, your signal is so less that you'll notice that all your data is really bunched up in your Instagram as a very high peak, right? I mean, you're basically, your entire data is bunched up as a very sharp peak, and there's really nothing. If you just normally load it in Photoshop, you will see it as a black image, right? So that data is in linear state where it simply is the data that was recorded. That's it, nothing else. And then what you do is you now start stretching it. Meaning you are now basically changing, you're splitting that, for example, I guess we should put a little bit example, but histogram simply says that what is a pixel, what is the value of, I guess maybe it's not a good way to explain. Maybe we can put a separate image for that later, but I guess the way you want to think of it is, you're looking the data that comes out of your camera to be extremely dark and black. And that is a linear state, untouched. Non-linear, meaning linear means whatever data you got, everything got basically the same weighting, right? It's just linear at the point. Non-linear is now just for us to see, we are stretching certain areas more, certain areas less. We want to keep the background dark, but we want to make the DSO brighter. So we are basically applying a nonlinear transformation, a function to the data that originally had just the same weightage, right? So we want the DSO to be visible more. We don't want your background to be not visible. Basically you are now applying certain amount of weightage, and that's what makes it nonlinear at the point. So that's basically I guess I would say. So in general terms, you shoot something, you load it up, like, a common example is that when you open it in Photoshop, you'll see black. You have to use levels to, stretch it out. That's when it becomes nonlinear. Does it make sense at all? Okay.
Essentially, we are changing the black point, gray point, and white point in such a way
Yep.
that black image looks better with and then we have this dynamic range compression somehow, right?
Correct. Right. So you are defining basically what constitutes your start or black point. So you can decide to basically you are applying a weight to each of the data that you have collected, right? So and as you said that you are going to try it, for example, if you are basically weighting the midpoint more, that means the grays more, to basically make certain things become more prominent than other things, and you are changing the black point to hide certain things that you don't want to see, that kind of stuff. Basically, so you're applying basically a linear data, you're applying a nonlinear function to stretch it, essentially, I guess. And that's once you stretch it, then you are loading it in Photoshop, and then you start working on it. So I thought that I didn't want to just go and start dumping information about some of these functions. Rather, it would be nice, I think, would be to actually see an actual processing itself, right? And remember that the workflow dictates how you want to process it, really. And I'm going to do basic LRGB processing for broadband data. Even for DSLR, I usually will split the data between the L channel and the RGB channel, and then process them and recombine them. Narrowband provides a different challenge, and that's for a different day. We can play with it. A lot of pixel math playing has to be done in narrowband to get stuff to the way where you want, because in narrowband things are completely arbitrary. You are deciding what you want to show, how you want to show. So your degree of freedom is a lot. At the same time, you're also pretty much stuck, how you want to process your data. So narrowband is a different ball game. So we'll get to that later, right? So another thing is that I'll try to explain as much as I can, but again, I only know so much in PixInsight as well. So I'll try to explain. If I don't know, we'll have to just go and research it, basically, right? All right, so I'm going to try and share my PixInsight screen application window, and is it visible now?
Yeah,
my screen. Or looks like I'm being seen rather than the pixels. Oh, it's coming. Okay. All right. Excellent. So here I have, let's see. So the data for this today is an OSC data. No, it is, hey Kuldeep, this is, can you guys hear me? It says, waiting for people to join this video call. Hello? Okay. I lost Kirti and the dog for a second there. So hey Kuldeep, this is not OSC data, this is mono data that I shot here, and I already stacked it, and it is already clean data, okay? But you can see the PixInsight screen though, right? I guess you guys can see, okay. All right, so you can see that everything is black here, right? So this is the linear state that I'm trying to work. So in the PixInsight, you'll notice that it's basically a bunch of windows that I have here, and I have something called a screen transfer function, pixel math screen, I have a bunch of these things. Okay, this is how it is, and you can see that it is not your usual application, right? You can see that the total functionalities they have is like tons of these things, like add to us, Wheeler transform, adaptive stretch, background neutralization, channel extraction, color calibration, blah, 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 all sorts of stuff is there. And none of these actually make any sense if you start working on it. You cannot really be, figuring things out here. It's really bad. I mean, there's really not much in terms of documentation. That's its biggest problem. It has very steep learning curve because of that. It just makes no sense at all. And the UI also is pretty weird also. So it is what it is, I guess. But you can see that I have L, R, G, and B. These I've stacked already, right? I've cropped them, and they're aligned perfectly, okay? So that's what right now we are having it. And this is the linear data, and I'm going to show you by looking at the histogram. And the histogram, if I select L as this one, and you can see that the histogram is all the way bunched to the left, right? Let me see the screen share to catch up. It should show you now. Is it showing my, is it? I guess it's not yet showing my histogram. Because I'm watching the YouTube to make sure that it's catching up. But do you see my histogram window at all?
No, I don't see the histogram window.
I don't know why. It's like almost like it's frozen, or maybe, huh?
I can see
because I can only see like 4 screens there. Maybe it'll slowly catch up. I'll wait, I guess. Man.
I can see your cursor moving at least. But
you can see it, is it? Like, because I can see only my 4 windows there, but I don't see the screen transfer function or any of those things there.
Yeah.
How about I share the whole screen, right?
Yeah.
So let me see if I can share the whole screen. Maybe that'll help. Okay, I'm trying to share the whole screen now.
Yeah, I can see the screen transfer window now.
You can? Okay. So it's showing up right here, right?
Yeah, on the left bottom.
Okay. All right. Okay. So now if I open the histogram transfer function, you can see that still not loading. I don't see it.
No, I think your YouTube may be slower because I mean.
Okay, you can see it, right? Okay. Okay. All right. So here on the left side, you can see that the data. This is the data. This entire frame's data from 0 to 65K. 16-bit converted data, you can see all your data is like bunched all the way to the left, right? And basically, this entire frame's data from 0 to 65K, 16-bit converted data, you can see all your data is like. Looks like Doc is online now. Hello? Okay. All right. So it's basically on the left, right? Now, if you look at it, how do I tell what the data is here? So there is something called screen transfer function. What it does is it only applies some operation just to the screen, but doesn't alter the data. It's very useful to see what is in the data. So for example, I can select this, and if I do something like this, it basically stretches and shows me what is in this particular frame, right? And you can see that this is having in 45, right? It's Pleiades. And you can see also the information here. Same thing for R. I'm just trying to see what is in there. Well, that is the R channel and the G channel and the B channel. And you can see that this is the data that is available in there. But the data is not yet changed. The data is still the same. Okay. So if I go back, the data has not yet been changed, right? So the first thing that I normally like to do is basically get the L ready. Basically, all your data, all your strength, all your information is going to come through the L channel, right? Is something wrong here? Okay. All the information is in the L channel. RGB is only going to give us data for color data only. We are not going to use it for anything else. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to convert this RGB into a single RGB frame. Is something going on, Kirti, or you guys can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think the volume for some time went drastically down. I think that's because when doctor joined at that time, something happened. But now I muted us, and then I think it is fine. Guys,
Okay.
confirm if you can hear us properly. I'll just mute myself now again.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we can post. So here's what I'm just going to show you: a simple pixel math, right? RGB screen frames are there. I'm simply going to just map them. Basically, I'm just simply going to assign R to the R channel, G to the G channel, B to the B channel, and you can do the same thing in Photoshop, but only after stretching. But here you are doing it while it is still in linear form. So I'm going to simply add it, and I'm getting a frame here. So Control A, you can see that I got an RGB. I'm going to close this. I've already created RGB frame right here. So I'm having an L and I'm having an A. But as you can tell, the colors are completely off, right? I mean, it's like having some weird background, weird everything. So what do we normally do? The first thing you do is to calibrate it. I want to color calibrate it. There are a few things you can do. The first one is normally using what we call as a dynamic background extraction. That can do the job. So I'm going to take a copy of this. I drag it out. I get a clone of it, basically. I can do something called automatic background extraction. And whatever is the default, I'll leave it as is. I'll subtract it. And I'm going to just drag and drop to it. And it is going to figure out what is dominant. It's going to cut out. And it's going to figure out what the background is. And it gives some kind of weird, you can see that some weirdness is here, but it tried to do something. Nothing great, doesn't look good, right? Other option is to perform background calibration by telling the software which is your background, which is your foreground. And that can also be done using color calibration. But another tool is what is called as a photometric color calibration, right? The photometric color calibration, what it does is knowing this target, right? I know it's M45, and I know the colors of the stars in this area. I'm going to go ahead and figure out the stars in this frame, and I'm going to assign colors properly to them. So the photometric color calibration, and I'm selecting a white reference. You need to tell what the white reference is. In this example, I'm just selecting a G2V star. I mean, and it depends. Apparently, there are lots of these different